Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Lift Tower. My name's Charles McGilvray, and as always, I'm joined by Jess Keble and Simon Stacey. We're a fans podcast by fans for fans of Northampton Saints. How are you both doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm recovered.
That was not what I was expecting. Bearing in mind that it was almost a dead rubber of a match. It kicked off a bit, didn't it?
Oh my god! But I don't think I've heard a roar down there, right? And it didn't even mean anything, did it? Really? It was just in the end. It was always beating Sarries always means something, but that roar at the end, I don't think I jumped up on my feet. I was like, he's gonna score. It was insane. Yeah, I don't know how we managed it, and it wasn't even the big boys, was it? It was all the bench. The young pups, your best mate, Big Ed Prowse coming on, making an impact.
He's a great player, isn't he? Told you about Ed Prowse.
Insane, mate. It was insane because it's always we were awful the first 20, 30 minutes, and wow, yeah. As I say, that roar, I'm surprised I didn't hear us in flipping Birmingham.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely not the best first half, that was for sure. I mean, we all looked lethargic. We lacked that tempo that we're so good at. We sort of allowed them to dictate the collisions a bit too much. That we allowed them such they were allowed to sort of get an upper hand at the rack time. I mean, it started to think, all right, they're just not mentally, and we've seen that all year, haven't we? With these games, sometimes they just don't seem to be mentally there, and then the bench come on, there's two changes, whatever, and the players who come in have got a lot to play for, a lot to push. Suddenly it just snapped, and the tempo was there, the energy was there, the crowd was really behind them, and it just seems like inevitable, didn't it? Really.
You know what I thought was weird? It's like when Finn went off, not because he's just world class, but I think Sarries thought, he's gone off, so we can just sort of step off a bit, and then we seemed to just dominate them. It was really strange. Little was it Luke Garside? He came on. He was a little pocket rocket and all, wasn't he? Shame he's leaving. But yeah, I was well happy because it's always good to beat Sarries and them up the road. They're the two games I always want us to win at home, and it just the fact that it might have screwed them over for a top four space as well just gives it a little bit extra.
I think we owed it to the general rugby population to beat them and keep them out of the top four, didn't we? Should we head it head on and look at the most probably, I don't know why it's the most controversial piece, but it is the winning try. Should we tackle that?
Well, if you're going to make that controversial, what about their first one, which was about 5 miles forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? So the forward pass rule can be a bit grey, but the ball can technically move forward, can't it? Because of inertia and what have you. So I think we can quite comfortably say that their second try was passed about a metre before the line, in terms of the line and the grass, and it got taken about a metre past the line, right? So it's travelled a good 2 metres over the course of a 15-foot pass, right? And the ball came out the back of Daly's hand. I think if you interpret the laws as they're meant, it's fine, but technically it definitely moved forward in space. Right? I think the Dingwall one, exactly the same. I think it's come out from his hand backward, but it might have moved forward slightly in the same basis. However, the Litchfield one was just a forward pass. he just knocked it forward. It came off his forearm, didn't it, and sort of flew forward.
Yeah, it came off his forearm. Yeah, I just feel it feels like a weird hill for them to die on, for like Saracens and Sarries fans to die on, considering the things they got away with for the whole 80 minutes. There's a knock on in the build up to their first try, so that shouldn't have stood. So let's take ours off and take that one off. We're still ahead on the leaderboard. I was like, they need to look inwards for the reason that they lost the game rather than outwards. And I'll give credit to Mark McCall, who in his interview did say, it was our fault. We didn't deserve to win. We stepped off and let them back into the. I mean, what was the lead at one point? 7-24. I remember when they scored first in the second half, and I was convinced that was that. I was like, I just can't see us getting back into it. I felt like, and it's nothing against them, because obviously, I think it's probably a combo of a couple of weeks off, looking ahead to what's coming this week. all kinds of different factors that kind of play into it. But like some of our sort of quote unquote best players in the pack really underperformed in those 50 minutes. And then it said it's the bench coming on. I remember thinking when they took Finn and then they took Mitchell off, I was like, and it was nothing against the bench because as it turned out I was wrong, but like nothing against them anyway. But I thought that's what's going to definitely lose us the game, because I felt like their bench was much stronger than ours. But maybe it was just the fact of they felt like they had something to prove and it was a Saracen squad and we were behind, that maybe it just took them, I don't know, it just gave them a proper boost to really go for it, because Saracens totally turned off. They like completely switched off. So I think, we can talk about, yeah, exactly. As you can kind of talk about that forward pass until the cows come home. But I think they got away with so much. And it was a weird one because I think Luke Pearce is one of the best refs around, but I don't know what was going on with the whole reffing team that day. And I count all of them in that, right? Like the assistant refs, the TMO. It was like every call that they made was just wrong. Like I don't know what was happening. I don't know what was happening. It was such a weird thing because like I hate sitting here because I feel like we do it so much, and like not just us three, but I mean like the commentary around the game is focused on it so much that it gets a bit boring after a while. But I think everybody can watch that overall performance as a refereeing team and just be like, it wasn't good. In fact, I would go so far as to say it was quite bad. Like it wasn't even just that, it was kind of mediocre. I mean, I felt like, I mean, it didn't matter in the end because we got a penalty try like right after it, but I felt like the reasoning for Dingwall's not being a penalty try just didn't make sense to me. Like, because he threw the ball in, I was like, well, yeah, because he got tackled in the air and he knew he had. Yeah. And in that moment also, he's not thinking penalty try. He's just thinking, well, I need to keep the ball in. Like I feel like you can't essentially penalise him for that because he just threw the ball in and it went to nobody. So I felt like the decision for that was really odd, but I wonder if that played into the penalty try that came after. Maybe,
Definitely.
I still think that was a penalty. I think that was a penalty try independently, whether that had happened or not, right? They pulled it down right on the line. It was pretty clear. But I wonder if part of why he made that decision so quickly without looking, perhaps maybe it was factoring in his mind of, I was bad. Not that he necessarily thought he was harsh, but maybe he thought, they're doing some stuff on this 5 meter line that I'm not happy with, and it fed into kind of that decision to give it so easily, maybe. But
just sort of focuses
a strange
the mind,
one.
Isn't it? Just sort of focuses the mind of a referee, because it happens all the time. Right? Every game, a referee will make a decision and they're not quite sure on it, but they might have screwed over a team by not going one way or the other. It almost it might not necessarily evening things up, but it almost focuses their attention on the opposite team, looking for another mistake to punish, because that Dingwall logic was so flawed. Right, he's in the air, Good tackles him in the air to stop him scoring, and so but as he tackles him, he pushes him out, so Dingwall throws it back in. If he hadn't have touched it, he wouldn't have been. If he hadn't been touched, he wouldn't have been going out. He wasn't jumping in to touch. He was jumping towards the line, right? So
Dingwall actually said that on the Dingwall questioned it. He went, "Yeah, but the only reason I threw the ball back was because he was tackling me in the air." He said, "If I hadn't, he would have took me into touch." So he said, but then he said it's not a penalty try because he threw the ball back. He wasn't attempting to score, but the only reason he threw it back was because he got tackled in the air and he would have ended up in touch. So it makes no sense. And the TMO, my God, I think 2 of our tries, he was trying to persuade Luke Pearce not to allow them. He was like, let me just look. He's like, but I can't see anything clear on the telly. You need to make sure it's clear. And he was like, yeah, let me have a look at an angle. Like Jess said, all of them seem to have a bad day. And I said, I'll take the blame, because me and who I sit next to, Bob, both went, we actually like Luke Pearce. I said, we've probably tempted fate here. Literally every time I've said that, we've had the referee has been awful. So I'll take some of the blame for that. But yeah, the touch judge, there was a few where the touch judge, you could clearly see he was pressing his mic, talking to Luke Pearce when we were shouting like forward pass or knock on, totally ignored him. It's insane. And there was another bit about you saying about Luke Pearce like going like the penalty try later. There was a bit I think they knocked on, he didn't see it, and then there was a quick tap or something, and then he gave us a penalty. Like you said, it's in his head gone, I've just messed up there, I need to give them something straight away. And you could just see it. It's hard, horrible job. None of us want to do it, and we're not criticizing them, but it's just consistency. And it's just like for most of the tries in that game, they look forward passes. I wouldn't say our last one was. I've watched it so many times. You reckon it was?
It's hard. It's very hard, that one with the angle, right? Because as soon as you put an angle on the camera, you instantly can't make an accurate decision, because unless you've got a point of reference like a grass line or something like that, you can't actually tell we're being square on. I think it has gone forward based on the motion and the fact that he's sort of gone to flick it back, but it's sort of hit his forearm and flicked up and forwards, and Tarek sort of running onto it and puts his arms up front and forward, sort of reach for it. I think if it had come backwards, that wouldn't have been the motion that Tarek would have made. The second one, I think the Dingle one is probably all right, because you 100% can't make a decision on that based on what the angles they've got, because it looks like it comes out of his hand backwards, but you can't tell based on his angle. You know, if he's slightly at an angle towards, say, the corner flag, it can look like it's coming out the back of his hand, but still be going forward. So it's hard, but that one's, I think, impossible to make a decision on, because the angle that makes it look forward is coming from very much behind Dingwall, and so therefore you're never going to know, right? So I used to do stat work for Opta, and you had to make these things up, and you had to try and get the points of reference. And if there isn't a point of reference, you just can't make a decision on it. So I think, I think the second one probably was, but like Jess said, and the Saracens fans, you can't look at a game in isolation. There are so many moments in a game that influence it. You can't look at the one decision that went against you and blame it that. And
they won't they? Because it's the last play.
Yeah, I can see.
I
totally see. I see why you do, because you've lost in the dying seconds. You know, you've lost having quite a big lead, and so you focus on one thing. But like I said, because it was the last decision of the game, and because it was that close, like I can see where people latch onto it. But the issue that you then have is when you're trying to have dialogue with these fans of like, well, what about this or what about that? It just gets kind of ignored, and like you can't, like it doesn't work like that. Like I could point out so many different times in that game that different things should have happened. Like I think when Seabrook was going to get that ball right by the try line, that's definitely played on the floor and should absolutely be a penalty, a minimum, right there on the try. Most likely. And instead, the guy just gets to pick up the ball and keep running. And I was like, so if we take, and even if you just take those. So I think the Gonzalez try, I think that was forward, and I think ours was forward, right? So I said, let's take both of those and take them both off of the scoreboard. Okay, will we still win? So I'm like, I really don't. I just feel like you're never going to be satisfied by focusing on like one tiny part of the game that could have gone your way. And there were a fair amount of fans that were saying that, to be fair, that they think it was very much tit for tat during that game, lots of things being missed, and a lot of fans that are definitely pointing the fingers kind of at the team for kind of backing off. But yeah, it's weird that they like to use terms of, oh, it's all corruption and it's a conspiracy, and I'm like, it's kind of ironic. Like, of all the teams that are going to sit there and say, I remember talking to a friend of mine, Michael, afterwards. I said they're banging on about being a conspiracy, and I said the only reason that they're convinced that there is a conspiracy is because they know they've done something wrong in the past and people don't like them. So I said, you need to look inwards as to why you think there's giant conspiracy around you. I said, well, because there should be, because there was a conspiracy around you a few years back and it turned out to be right. Like, so I'm just like,
and then it becomes sorry. You know what was ironic? I heard on the ref link, one of their scrum sets, they do a call, which they're going to do their move. One of their calls was called cheater.
Yeah, they kept saying cheater the whole way through. And I'm assuming it's definitely referencing the animal, I guess. But I was just like, for a minute, first I heard it first, I thought someone was shouting it at someone. I was like, what is going on? And then, I realized it kept happening at different scrums. I was like, oh, it's a call for something, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah, it's a weird thing around that you sort of mention that to them, and you mention all of this, and it's like, oh, well, that's in the past. But then in the same kind of grouping of tweets or whatever that they're talking about, they're also mentioning that the game was gifted to us in 2014 for a similar reason. I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways. You can't go, well, you can't talk about us doing that a few years ago, but we'll harp on about how you didn't deserve the title. I'm like, it's ridiculous. Everyone's being I don't know if any fans are listening, but
they're just picking things that are justifying themselves. In 2014, they don't think we scored. There is photographic evidence.
I know,
and also
very clear
I saw it live.
Well.
Waller trap grounded the ball, right? So that's nonsense. It's hard fact, right? This whole thing about controversies it's all that. The thing is, what's happened there is Saracens have been at the top of the game for so long because they cheated that they've now got a fan base that is entitled and expects to be winning all the tasks, right? And they're struggling to cope with the fact that they're in a transition, in a cycle, and they're a mid-table team.
Yeah.
Right. That's hurting, and they're lashing out. Right. Oh, it's a conspiracy against us. Right. It's not. It's you're in a natural downward trajectory because you've got a number of players who want too much money, and you need to offload them and get a better balanced squad. That's all it is, right? And you've got to accept that. That's we went on a downward trajectory after 2014, didn't we? And it ended up with Boyd coming in.
I mean, and there are some clubs that I think that's going to happen to next year. Look at some of the clubs like Gloucester in particular and Sale that are losing a huge chunk of first team players. They're inevitably probably going to drop down into that kind of cycle. It's just a natural thing, like you said, but because Saracens rode that high for reasons we've already mentioned for so long, it's just become this expectation. But again, the same friend I was talking to, he's like, they're a mid-table side. They've been a mid-table side the whole season. I mean, so have we, really, until the last sort of couple of months. We kind of deserve to be where we are in that Premiership because, we were absolutely, off the pace. I wouldn't sit there and say we are a better side necessarily than where we are in the table. I know it sounds weird considering we're in the European final, but we picked up at the right time for that. It was just a bit too late, for the Premiership. But yeah, it's a weird one. But yeah, you have to look at that game as an entirety. And I think the whole game was a mess, to be honest. I think there were all kinds of breakdown issues going on that wasn't being picked up. Offsides all over the place from both sides. It was messy, and it ended messy. And it's obviously unfortunate. And look, I'm not a fan of their side. I get that losing your playoff chances like that in the last minute is going to sting. I totally understand that because the reality is that there's still a chance they can do it, but they'd have to have certain results going their way that I can't see happening. And yeah, sure.
One of those being us sending the second string down to Gloucester and get hammered so that Sarries can't get through.
Yeah. And yeah, sure, it totally sucks. And if you were in the flip side, as a Saints fan, sure, it would sting. But I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of naivety there amongst the fan. And I'm not saying it's just their fan base. I think it would happen no matter what team you were playing against, to be honest. It's just, it lends a particular sense of irony considering the team that it is, to be fair.
Yeah, I think we're in the position we're in, I think, because we have not been able to field our best 15 all season, have we? Be honest. Well, we haven't got the massive depth that we used to have. The boys that have come on have done well, but most of this season, we haven't had a Mitchell, a Finn, a Fraser, Dingwall, a Furbank playing for 50-60% of our matches. At the end of the season, we've had that back, and look where we are. We're in the Champions Cup final.
Yeah, I think the reality is the league's so tight, and before the Chiefs game, etc. You look at it and you go, well, actually, we had shocking performances against Leicester and against Gloucester, right? When we were just really subpar, they mentally didn't turn up. If we'd have won those two games, we'd have actually been in the top four at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So it just shows you how tight things really are.
Yeah.
But when you look at the actual performances and quality and depth of teams, Saracens were quite far up in that game, and their players just completely dropped off a cliff. The momentum just switched in that second half. So you can say all you want about decisions and whatever. We were the better team in that second half. And, if Seabrook had have scored that try where, that's a penalty try all day long. You can't tackle a player or contact the ball if you're on the ground.
Yeah. That's
a hard rule, right? And so that should have been a try. The Dingwall situation, etc. We had all the momentum. We were creating these opportunities because Dingwall and Freeman went on that absolute tearing run, and then we created moments and we went down to their 5 meters a number of times. Right, we were the better side. By hook or crook we got the result, but we worked for that whole second period. The momentum was well and truly with us, and Saracens should look at that. Why was that the case? They didn't perform. Why? Because their bench wasn't as strong as ours. Their big players seem to lose all sort of energy. They look drained. Couldn't cope with the pace and the heat of the game. So
Are you not slightly worried that our Lions captain was Mario Toji and he looked very average and he gave away about 5 penalties in that game? And he's going to be captain of the Lions. I'm not dissing the player. The man is an absolute huge unit and he's quality. Whether he wasn't playing full on because he didn't want to get injured or something, and he was not happy at the end. He was not happy. He stormed down the tunnel and ignored everybody, even like little kids asking for autographs. He went on the coach. So, yeah, he was not happy, done he?
Yeah, and I'm sure he is frustrated. But then I also think that Lions call-up probably took a lot out of a lot of players. You know, Finn was, as you said, Finn is world class. Mario Tojo is world class. Neither of those put their best performances on in that performance, right? And how much of the Lions hype is and the emotional energy that takes out of you.
Yeah, I agree, but I would say
performances.
I would say probably more the lads that are playing for us is the fact that they've got a Champions Cup final next week and they didn't want to get injured. And unfortunately, the bench looked like A&E again by the end of the match. Literally ankles tapped, probably Curtis with his shoulder strapped. Hopefully they're just little knocks, but Rami didn't look good, bless him. That one did not look good. Then they made him climb up the stairs and get his shirt.
I can't believe they made him climb up the stairs.
Take it down.
There was a bit of a delay where they couldn't decide, and I'm guessing he made the decision in the end. And I was like, "What are you doing? Make someone come down to you! Like, what are you doing?" But I think the biggest concern at the moment is actually Coles. I heard again someone has posted that his knee was in a brace and he was on crutches, and that he's the one that's the potential risk. Which, considering who we're already missing in that backline with Augustus confirming he's out for the rest of the season.
Which you probably shouldn't have done. He went, I don't know if I can say this, but
well, at the end of the day, if you're injured and you're out. Like I don't.
I just meant like for like.
But yeah, no, I get they like to announce it, don't they, during like the media sessions? But yeah, it didn't look good for Coles. Someone had spoken to Curtis, I think, and he said he was all right.
Yeah,
and Ram thinks he should be okay. But yeah, it's Coles that's the worry for me because we feel a bit light there.
I feel that Coles is a massive loss, right? But I
think that could be
it
could be precautionary as well. I just want to say that it's just saying what someone said online, that he was in a brace and he was on crutches, and when you put those two together, you always think not good.
But he was the only one at the end I didn't see like around the ground because I was there till about 8 o'clock, and Curtis come out and he said he reckons it was just a stinger, so he says he should be all right.
It looked like he just kept shaking out, didn't it? It looked like a sort of a bad tackle technique essentially, and his arm went a bit dead.
He got a stinger and then he landed on it straight
and
after.
then exactly. And he tried to stay on, didn't he? And at one point someone obviously sent the message down like, this is not someone you want to risk, like, and the message obviously seemed to came down. Ram wanted to stay on and it was obviously not happening. I mean, he kept keeping himself out of the action. At one point he ran and pulled up, and so there's obviously a decent amount of pain there. So at one point obviously again the message had come down of like, just get I was the same. I was like, you need to get these people off, like, but
yeah.
So it's been interesting.
Rambo's
what happens,
the biggest worry because Coles is a phenomenal player and like crucial to the team, but like Ram goes down and we're out of fullbacks. Like, yeah, Tommy has to play there, or maybe Hutch plays there, but they're essentially playing out. You're taking one of your best players out of position to cover. Coles is already playing 6 because we're so light on the back row, but it sort of means Angus Scott Young comes in, and Angus Scott Young's a terrific player.
Yeah.
Rambo goes in, it's like, whoa, okay. I don't mean to be don't want to detriment to Seabrook because he's done plenty for the club, but there's a drop off from Tommy Freeman, and all from Rambo. It's a big drop off from them down to Seabs.
Yeah.
Because there's been moments in the last few weeks where he's not really looked the player that he is either. In terms of some of those, that moment when he got tackled and he should have scored. I think a die-hard finisher or Seabrook on form finishes that. There was a touchdown against Newcastle where he just had to hit the ball. He sort of missed it. I just think he's struggling for form, and it might be connected to that knee issue he's got.
Yeah,
but,
I did say to him actually after the game, I was like, I'm surprised I saw you on the bench because I said last week at Exeter you were literally walking on one leg, and he went, well, to be fair, there isn't anybody else. So he's like,
because at first you sort of think someone like a Glister who is in a sling, so that's not an option for you anymore. Like, it's bare bones. So I mean,
before we look ahead with the teams and everything to the next week, right? Should we finish off the Saracens chat and Who stood out for you performance-wise?
I'd say Kemeny. For the past 2 weeks, I've been all about Kemeny. I mean, that
Always
pickup,
about
like to
Kemeny.
pick that ball up, considering like he's an absolute giant of a human being, and the bounces it were giving him were like the smallest bounces ever. He literally had to get down right to the ground to pick that up. Like that score was ridiculous. It was like, I mean, we already talked about Finn not having perhaps his most vintage game, but that kick through was lovely and the absolute perfect decision in the moment. But yeah, that pick up from Kemeny and then to, stretch his arm out to score. Yeah, he's just been right on it for the past 2 weeks, past 3 weeks, and that's what we're going to need because he's obviously there's no Augustus, and who knows about Coles. He's definitely going to be a starter, I would say, for this weekend. So yeah, he's been absolutely excellent because I felt like he had a really good when he first arrived and was playing. He was really strong, and then it kind of dropped off a little bit, and so he wasn't being picked as much. But yeah, it's really picked up in the past, maybe even say sort of the past month or so. I mean, he got Players Player and Coaches Player of the Season at the award, so they've been very impressed with him. Yeah, and I think he's just been really on it, because I mean, he is a 6, isn't he? He's not a 7, but they didn't seem to bother him that much as far as I could tell. And yeah, I just thought he was absolutely on it. And then we've got to talk about I love Tommy Freeman, but for me, the man of the match should have been the guy that came on and scored 2 tries and won us the game. Like, it should have been Hafar, even if he wasn't on for very long. We are going to miss him massively, I think. I think that's a huge person to let go. Now, he hasn't played very much. So people say, what are you missing if they haven't played very much? But I think he's phenomenal. I think he's going to be phenomenal. I don't want to wish him too much success because of where he's going, but I do wish him success because you always do. Yeah, he's been great when he's come on the past kind of couple of weeks. Great with the ball. The scrum was I don't know what the hell was going on with the scrum. That was a mess for both sides from start to finish. Like free kicks and penalties all over the place for too much weight, not being stable. Nobody could figure out what was happening. But yeah, I thought Hafar was really, really strong when he came on. And that's not putting down Freeman because Freeman's always good. But I almost felt like the man of the match should have gone to him because I feel like he brought something when he came on that kind of upped the momentum and kind of got us over the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a strange day because, like I said, I think for 50 minutes we were far and away the second best side, but our best was better than their best on the day, and that kind of took us over the line. I think that's going to be really crucial as well for this weekend. Like the massive win over Bristol was like tactically perfect and set us up really nicely for Leinster. But I also think conversely, like having a tight win that you snatch at the end can also be really beneficial when you move on in terms of momentum. So. Definitely. Yeah, there were some good performances in there, definitely. But yeah, no, Kemany's on a really good trajectory at the moment, and hopefully he can carry that on this weekend.
Yeah, I knew he'd always be Kemany's quality. Charles always had a little bit of doubt in the background, didn't he? But I know. But Eric, I agree. But Tommy was everywhere again.
Yeah, I love Tommy.
How that boy is playing 80 minutes still. The amount of rugby he's played this season. He literally was insane. And to be fair, you probably would give it to Tarek because he scored the winning try that won the game in the last second. And we will miss him. But you said let him go. We don't know if he wanted to go. That's the thing. You can never.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah.
They might be offering him twice what we're offering him. You never know. But he'll probably end up being a centre anyway. He's not a prop, is he? No prop has them speeds.
He's a phenomenal ball carrier, isn't he? I mean, it's interesting, right? Because we declare ourselves to be a development club, right? It'd be interesting to know what the club think that means, because when you look at Tarek Afar, one of the best prospects in England, Ruben Logan, one of the standouts in England, the Six Nations under-20s for Scotland, etc. And both those players who are highly prospect players are leaving Saints in the summer, and essentially what's coming in Fischetti and Chick are established, seasoned players, right? So where's the development club there? Because we're letting prospects leave, replace them with great signings, right? Fischetti, Chick, phenomenal players, great signings, add a lot of value, will really, really do a good job, and in the short future, they're probably better players. Okay, it's good. It's interesting. I'm not blaming or complaining, or it's just an interesting point that we make this stance. We're a development club, and then are we living by it when we do stuff like that? But
Yeah,
Tarek
you
was
say that.
phenomenal.
You do say that, but then we lost. How many leaders did we lose last season? So maybe bringing in a chick and that, like a captain of Newcastle, right in his prime. It's just one of them, and it's like people always say. You see online, why are we letting them go? It might not be our choice. Tarek might have said, "I'm not getting first choice every week. I want to go there up the road to the enemy for some weird reason. I don't really want to do that." But he might be getting double the money. He might be getting promised more starts.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
and Ruben Logan, as Gabby Logan released it, said, "Oh, do you want to move back up to Manchester?" So maybe that's a family thing. So again, that might not have been the Saints' decision because it's only 1 year. We had him for 1 year on the books. I'm sure he would have signed more than that.
Exactly, yeah.
When you see though, like who Sale are losing as well, like, there's some big people going from their pack. So I wonder if again it's something that Sale have identified as maybe wanting to blood some new people through there, and that's just what's happened, and it was a good offer. I still think that we are going to be a good development side. Like, you still think of some of the young guys that play in some of those positions and are still, I mean, technically, I know he's a Lion, but Pollock at 20 years old is still a developing player, right? You've still got your kind of Tom Lockett, your Mungers in there. You've still got people that I think you're going to see a fair amount. But yeah, I think next season will be telling, won't it, in terms of how they plan to do it, because as far as I'm aware, and I might be wrong about this, but I'm sure I read that the Premiership Cup is no longer existing and there's no alternative from what I've heard. So
I think there will be something.
Something's got to. I just haven't seen anything about it at the moment, but hopefully something does, so we can see some of those. But you've also got to get
A-League, mightn't they? Like
possibly. You also got to get to a situation where, like, if we want to blood some of these people through, we've just got to start putting them in the Premiership. The difficulty, I suppose, comes with, like, you want to win, you want to keep doing well, and you have to just find the right balance. So maybe they're bringing some of these people in to try and find some of that balance. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens. Happens next season, definitely. But it is interesting. But I think we've got some really good prospects, I think, still coming through. But yeah, we've just got to, make sure you're keeping hold of them. But then sometimes you can't keep hold of everyone. People are going to end up, going because they need and want, more game time. And we're sort of in a situation where we've got so much talent in that squad. Everybody that loses, everybody that goes for whatever reason, like, there is genuinely really good talent that will end up kind of walking out through the door. So, but it's an interesting question, definitely, for what's going to happen next season.
Signing Chick and Frischetti as well. You don't stop. They don't come in and that's that. You still want to develop them and make them better players, of course.
Exactly,
right? So, as a development club, it's not just about getting kids and turning them into pros. It is also about every player on the books you're continuing and making better with quality coaching. That's a good. There's two examples because he's got a huge prospect. He was amazing. His ball carrying is terrific, and essentially, he got the winner. He scored 2 tries. He won us that match to some extent. So, I thought Johnny Wyman was great when he came on.
He was. He does look really good, that boy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think between him and Archie McParland, there's going to be a lot of competition to push those 2 first choice 9s, and with Mitch away, we're not going to be short next year.
Yeah, I did feel the only thing with Wyman is I felt a bit sorry for him in going back a week before in the Exeter game when sort of Tom James seemed to kind of subsume his role as well as 10, and I was like, no, you need to let this guy. You should be letting this guy do it, because that's the whole kind of point of it, And I think he seemed to get that at some point, because we started seeing Wyman get more and more into that game and actually, kind of solidify himself. But yeah, there's some really good talent in some of those. I mean, obviously Jake Garside is moving on. He was one of the ones that was, at one point touted as kind of one of the kind of follow-up 9s, and perhaps that feeds into him leaving because he knows how many are sort of around the club, and it's going to be very difficult because you've got to think that the list at the moment is going to be, like you said, it's obviously Mitch and Tom James, and then you've got Parland and Wyman, and maybe Garside and thinks, like, where do I fit in here? Because otherwise he can play lots of different roles in that back line. But when you think of who else can play in those back lines when everyone's hopefully back firing and fit, like, I should imagine his question then really is, where on earth do I fit in here? Because 15s is, you're going to have Thurbs and Ram always pushing for those. Then Ram is always going to be pushing for your kind of wings. Your centres. You've got loads of options. So yeah, it's always a shame, obviously, to hear something like 17 players are leaving. You think, oh my god! But then you also look at how many other teams the exact same stuff is happening to. Like, it certainly isn't unique. But yeah, next year will be interesting because it feels like we should be able to step on from this year, at least in the Premiership. I think with Europe, we're in the final. I don't know how far you can push on from that other than having a good year as well. With the Prem, we definitely want to push on. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and it does feel a little bit like we've only just started to kind of catch up from losing, Laws, Ludlam, Moon, etc., and then we're losing some other big people in in some other roles. So yeah, I feel like there still may be another season of kind of getting comfortable in those kind of routines with those new people.
Yeah, I think when you see like those, it happens every year. You get large numbers, and when you look at the number, the people that are leaving, a lot of those people who have sort of been around the club in the academy setup and just haven't made that impact in that first team squad. So you go at a certain point, you've got to go, well, what do you want out of life? Do you want to go away and play for a smaller club and get paid more, or do you want to sit on the bench, or not even on the bench, be in the travelling reserve, etc. For saying. Everyone doesn't. No one wants to do that. You go and play at the level where you can play because you've only got so many years in you as a professional. You want to spend them playing, not training. So I think that's natural. That's always going to happen. When you get, I think it was really funny when you see like sort of Charlie Savala announcing to leave because he's going to go up to Edinburgh. He'll probably play a lot more, and people go, "Oh, that's a real shame." We wish we had seen more of him. Well. Yeah, but what are you wishing then? You're wishing not to see Dingwall play? Because, we've got a world-class 12.
It's just one of them, innit? It's people because they just go, it's a shame he's not here, but he's not playing. So why pay a player that's not playing?
He's a good player.
Why pay a player that's not going to get picked? And that's why he's gone. He wants to start, so he's got to move on. And people you can keep you can have a squad of 60 people like Bath have, but they're not all going to be happy, are they? That's the point. So you've got to, the ambition is to play rugby, and totally fair play to him. He's not getting picked. He's probably, even with Berger going, he still would probably be third or fourth choice centre. So don't blame him. And is he going there as a fly half? I'm guessing. I think he is.
Well, I guess he'd go there as a 12 now because he seems to be really pushing on in that role.
It makes sense.
But you've also you go there sort of as almost versatility in a way, like you can use him in either position, and Berger is one of those ones where he's in his 30s now, if I'm not mistaken. And he's going to Japan, did they say?
Well,
so
it's not been confirmed.
No, it is Japan Division 2. I think it's confirmed.
But he's going for a final contract, get some money, retire. That seems pretty obvious there. And I do feel like it's a bit of a shame with someone like Savala because you just would have liked him to have more opportunity, even if it was in the Premiership Rugby Cup or whatever. He just got so unlucky. The same with Berger. They just got so unlucky with injuries. I mean, Savala at the moment is back. He's Australian, isn't he? He's back home, they said, in Australia, kind of recuperating after another surgery. Like, I think it's more kind of like a level of kind of politeness and understanding that player hasn't had perhaps the opportunities they themselves would have liked to have because of kind of factors outside of their own control. But yeah, you don't really see where he comes in other than, lower on the list or when we have a Premiership Rugby Cup, and understandably that's not what they want. That's not what anybody's going to want long term. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like the losses are, outside of Augustus, it doesn't feel like the losses are as huge as they were last year. And I think Chick is some really good business to try and plug a hole, as it were, somewhere. But yeah, next year will be interesting, but it's very far away. We've got too far ahead of ourselves again.
Do you not think we get more signings? Because surely we're a bit short at centre now.
I imagine there'll be a big-ish name at lock.
Yeah.
I can't see us going into the season without announcing a fairly good signing to replace Timo.
So I'm thinking there's a
big tight head lock who adds
Alex
weight
Moon.
to the scrum. Yeah, if we can get Alex Moon back, that would be great. Mooney would solve everything, I think, because I mean the thing is we were talking about scrums in the Saracens game. I genuinely think when Ed Prowse went into the second row, our scrum got considerably stronger and got the advantage. I think having that big tight head lock makes such a big difference to us. Like, Moon was phenomenal in doing it for us, and Timo's a big lad, phenomenal player. But I think Ed Prowse just adds so much. Like, Big Trev went off and Elliot Miller-Mills came on, and you sort of would assume that it would go the other way. But with Prowse coming on, we seem to get the upper hand. And I know their front row changed as well, but they brought an international loose head on. And yet we seem to suddenly start really putting it to them at scrum time. And I think one, their energies just went, and two, I think we were probably physically heavier when the substitutions made.
The Ferguson effect. Like I said, we haven't mentioned him. He's leaving. He's going to be a massive loss because he's got that pack playing out of their skin and way above their own weight.
Yeah. The skill and the technical understanding. Yeah. It'd be really interesting to see who comes in that route. But we can talk about that at another point. Yep. I think we've been delaying the inevitable. We need to look ahead to this week because wow. Biggest game in the history of the club for a while, and that's including the Prem final. Like this European or Premier, Championship Cup game is enormous. It's up there, and the only thing that's when you go into these finals, what you want to be able to walk away and leave is say that you put your best out there, and you played your best, and then if the win comes, it comes. If you're beaten on the day by the better team, okay, you have to accept it. But I feel like we're going to Cardiff so understaffed in terms of players. The team that you could pick of players who weren't playing on Saturday would probably win most Premiership games. Like the standard of play. And now you say, maybe no Ram, no Coles. It's bare bones. But what's really interesting and funny is last year there seemed like a real parallel to the 10 year before. It seemed like there was a lot of things that linked to that lead up to the 2014 final that happened last year. Ahead of the 2000 Heineken Cup final, we were down to the bare bones. We had so many players out injured, didn't we? Yeah. It seems like history could be repeating itself. You never know.
No, don't say that.
I think there's still I still think there genuinely is a route to win, even if we are down some of the people that we kind of don't want to be. It's a weird one. It's like I do feel kind of nervous about it, but it's also a case of like I felt like I'm not saying we don't deserve to be in the final because we absolutely do, but it feels like our kind of European performances have been so above kind of what I was expecting that I'm just kind of happy that they're there. Like
that's it. You're there, so that's
and you're there and anything can happen. Like the reality is that like Bordeaux in terms of finals recently, like they're an unknown, and it's an unknown for them. I don't just mean it's an unknown for us against them. It's an unknown for them in terms of how they're going to deal with that pressure environment. I would argue that over the past sort of 2 seasons, we probably have more experience than them in those kinds of situations. Even some of the big games that we've played, like because I think they had a semi-final last year, didn't they? And they got absolutely trounced. Or is it a quarter-final? They definitely made it through to the knockouts. I think Toulouse absolutely battered them, and it was a really heavy loss. And it was obviously the opposite this year. But like you think about some of the games that we've played, and not just who we've played, but where we've played. I think you mentioned this, Charles, when we were speaking before the game over the weekend, like the experience of playing in Croke Park, the experience of playing in the Aviva, plus you add the teams that you've played, and the fact that we've been in a Prem final. There's definitely the experience there and the kind of knowledge of how those big games are and how you'll feel about them and how you can deal with that almost kind of, I don't want to say makes up for the people that we're missing, because that might be a little bit too strong, but I think kind of puts us on a more level playing field than perhaps people might think we are. I think the difficulty that we definitely have in this one is that we don't have the odds stacked against us as we did against Leinster. I don't think people are going to think it's an 80% to 20% chance like they did in the Leinster game. I think it might be a little bit closer. So I don't know if we have, I think that really benefited us against Leinster. The idea that everybody had written us off before we'd even, the second we made it into that game against them, it was, well, they're not going to win. Everybody wrote them off from all corners. That really, really pushed them. So it'd be interesting what's pushing them in the camp this week. You'd like to think being in a final, being the champions of Europe is enough to push, and hopefully it is enough to push. Yeah. But you certainly don't have the kind of underdog tag as much as you did against Leinster to push in that sense. But yeah, it'll be interesting. You said, Bordeaux are a really, really strong side. There are some ridiculous players in there. And if you can't shut them down, you won't beat them. So it's going to be all about, much like it was against Leinster, it's going to be all about the defensive strategy and how well that's working on the day. You think about the players they've got in that squad that you need to shut down. Like, it's scary. Obviously, I think Penaud is a question mark as to whether he's going to be playing. But you think about Bielbiere on the other wing. Like, you don't shoot him down. You don't shut him down. He will 100% score tries against you because he can score them for fun against everybody. Jalibert is a really, really strong number 10. They've got Maxime Lucu, do they not, as
Yeah,
their
they're like halves.
as the scrum half? You know,
Yeah.
there are some big, because obviously the question mark for Luke at one point was, what's he going to be like with he was obviously the French number 9 for a couple of games when Dupont was out, and he really, you know, put some good shifts in, and he's been really instrumental to Bordeaux. So, you know, we've got our international 9 against their international 9. Like, there are some huge matchups across the field, and it feels a bit like it kind of would have felt against Leinster. If you're off even a slight little bit, they'll punish you, and they'll punish you hard. So they're definitely going to have to be on it. I still think we've got the personnel to win. I think we've got the experience to win, and I think we've got, like I said, the motivation to win. But I honestly, if someone was honestly going to tell me which way that game was going to go, I genuinely think it's like a 50-50. I think it genuinely is going to come down to who turns up better on the day. And that could be either of the two sides, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, the bookies have us as 2-1 outsiders. So that's what they think. And I mean, that's a load of rubbish. But there's no way it's that. If they don't, because they're not even they're not taking into account our injury profile. I'm pretty sure of that. They think our best be their best, and that's what it is. And I completely disagree with that. I think our best beats their best. Well,
just beat Ireland, for Christ's sake, in Ireland.
Yeah,
and you've even got to think. You've even got to think about, again, like, and this is not as much of the French team as Leinster is of the Ireland team. But there is a lot of the French team in there, and there's a lot of the English team in ours, and our English team beat their French team. So you've also got the kind of recent experience of actually kind of knowing how to do it. I think that really helped against, I don't know if it will help as much because it's not as much of the team, but I think that also helped against Leinster. It was like we kind of understood how they were going to play, and there was experience of some of our players, a good chunk of them in the end, kind of beating a good chunk of theirs. And so, yeah, I certainly wouldn't write us off that much, not at all. I mean, I think if we don't have Ram and we don't have Coles, it becomes difficult. But I wouldn't say it becomes impossible.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a final, isn't it? It's a final.
It's a final.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the Prem final. We played atrociously. All of them said that they played atrociously. Courtney Laws was like, "I'm livid." At the end, he was like, "I'm fuming." He said, "We were awful," and you still came out on top. So sometimes you don't even have to. I think conversely against Leinster, we had to play 100% to win that. I'm not convinced that's the same about the final. I'm not saying that you don't want to play 100%. You definitely do. But it feels like you could maybe be 10% off and there's still a way through. Whereas with Leinster, that was like they knew everybody had to be on it, and they had to be on it for, 80 minutes, and they were, and they ground out like the best win I've ever seen. But it's an interesting one. It's it's a final. So I feel like literally everything goes out of the window.
Exactly that. It's like not going to the round ball version, but look at last weekend. Crystal Palace, Man City. No one gave Crystal Palace a hope in hell. They won 1-0. It's the final. Anything can happen in the final. So it doesn't matter what anybody says. If you turn up and score one more point than they do, you win the trophy.
Yeah, that's true. Finals are all about winning. That's key. I mean, 1-0 in an FA Cup final with a goal scored in the 15th minute sounds thrilling. But I'm glad I was at the Gardens. But yeah, the only thing I'd say is, I mean, it's a very different prospect to Leinster. I mean, Bordeaux are a phenomenally attacking team. They're very, very similar to us at our best, with perhaps a bit more oomph in the forward pack. But where they are not the same is defensively, right? So that's where they do struggle. And I feel if we play with our tempo and we run them, and opposite to playing Leinster, against Leinster, you don't want to take on their defence, right? So don't let them get into the game by giving their defence opportunities to get on top of you. Quite the opposite. I think against Bordeaux, it's going to be more about retention of the ball, being very, very secure at the breakdown, conceding no turnovers against their back row, but keeping the ball and running them, making their heavy forward pack go through multiple phases of defensive sets and running them, and then in that environment, come the end of the game with the emotions and the fitness levels, I think we'll outlast them. But you cannot give them opportunity to attack you, because the skills they have across that back line is just unreal. And Pernod is one of the best wingers in the world, and if he's not available, it's a shame for the spectacle, but it's an absolute win for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, no.
It was a thing of
Shame
like,
for the
it's a thing of like they keep saying it's tight, but you kind of saw his reaction when he hurt himself in that game. That game was over. It was like he knew he was kind of done. But yeah, who knows? Because I don't. They're pretty sure, I think, on what that injury is, other than saying, there's a chance. And I'm not going to say that's not true because I don't know. But
that's probably why they did with Augustus, wasn't it? I don't think they probably wanted him to say anything because then they go, he might play for the final, and now he's like, oh, we haven't got to worry about their massive number 8 now because he's out. For the
The difficulty though with something like Augustus is like when it's sort of like the levers presentation and you're sort of asking him to lie in that situation feels kind of crappy.
It was just funny. I'm not sure I should be saying this, but yeah, I'm out for the season. It was just the way that I'll tell you anyway.
I'm out for the season.
I'm leaving, so I can't get fined.
One thing, going back to the game as well. One implication of the injuries is if Tommy has to play fullback, I think we're really missing his defensive qualities up against BRBRE. You want to see that matchup on the wing where Tommy can keep him in his pocket all day and keep him under wraps because other than Ollie, who's obviously not going to be available, I don't think there's a player on the pitch.
I don't know if that's definite.
I'm not sure if we should be saying this, but when I was at the Gardens, me and Mike spoke to him, and he said, and he smiled. There might be a chance.
Yeah, I think they think there's a chance. Yeah,
but all right. This isn't being translated into France, so we can.
yeah. But it's also one of those that, like, if he does, it would be like on a bench, right?
Yeah, he won't start.
I almost feel that like it's a difficult one. I'm not sure I'd put Tommy at fullback. I think I'd put Rory there. I appreciate what's happened in the past, but I feel like that it's a safer option for, like you said. I think taking Tommy out of the wing position at that time would be the wrong call. As I feel like if it was me, I would move
Lichfield to centre.
I would move Lichfield to centre, and I'd put Rory at fullback because at least Rory's done it as well. Like, was it absolutely incredible? Also, was he incredible at fullback? No, but I must admit, I was really surprised at how well he played in the 10 position in the game before. Like, he was on it the whole time, making his kicks. It didn't seem to diminish his playing capabilities. He's again one of those that's really stepped up in the past couple of months. Seems to be getting back up to kind of what we know of him. So I would have him at fullback, and I would leave Tommy where he is, and I would bring Lichfield in. Because, like you said, it's not even just that I want to see Freeman against BLBRE, which I absolutely do, because how fun would that be? But like you said, he's also a big unit against a player that's slightly smaller than him, and so in fact, probably much smaller than him. So,
yeah, but pace-wise, he's one of Tommy and Ollie are probably the two in the squad that can cope with him just from in a space. 100%, can we stop him? They're probably the only two players in the squad who can actually deal with that sort of challenge. And I sort of then would go, if we want to back ourselves to keep the ball and hold the ball, but it doesn't really matter the numbers on the shirts, right? So you can put Hutch at fullback on the team sheet, and he can do what he does. Because when we've got the ball, Hutch is one of the best players around. Like he's just phenomenal at moving the ball, creating space, those little sort of sideways steps, but before he's got the ball, so he's giving himself an every 2 meters, whatever. He's just phenomenal. And then you've got to find a winger to do a job, but then it also seems a big task for Lichfield, who was excellent when he moved to centre at the weekend, but it's a big task for him to keep going between the roles. Is it better to put him back into a safe space at the centre or keep him on the route of learning those trades? Because it's going to be very hard for him if he's up against Damien Penaud in his 4th attempt at playing on the wing. If Penaud was playing,
it's totally different, and he's so underrated, that boy. But I just think you could see in the last few matches where he's played wing that Tommy has kind of been playing both wings because Lichfield still switches to centre. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I would do what Jess said. I'd probably put Siebes on the wing if we got no one else. If Rambo's out, put Rory at fullback, and then have Dingers and Lichfield in the centre with Tommy on the other wing.
Yeah, I think Lichfield on the wing is it's like a solid option in terms of he's got a great outside break, but when he plays that's more from centre. When he's on the wing, it's like he's not really going to let you down. He's going to carry well. He's going to make tackles. He's going to come off his wing and make carries, but he's not he's got more X factor through the middle than he has on the wing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas
that's what
like
I meant. I wasn't saying he's not.
Yeah. Whereas
he's
for
centre,
example,
so he's learned his centre role, and he kind of like to be a winger and defending as a winger. He kind of comes back in field a bit. He comes off his wing, so it's because he's learning. He's done it like 4 times, hasn't he? So
it's a very different, very different defensive structure to being a line defender to being an edge defender.
Yeah.
So when you go from being the last man in the edge, you've got a lot of more decisions to make than you have if you're, in the line. 13 is obviously the most difficult place because you're an edge defender and you're a line defender because you're working with your winger. But when you're a winger, you're just an edge defender, and therefore it's so easy just to sit too narrow. Get close to the man on the inside, but then your wingers, you're not marking him. So it's a really difficult one. And if we could get a few, surprise selection calls, who knows? They might sprinkle a few like that. Would be amazing, and it would give the team a big boost. I think. Ask a few questions, but
I think you might see a certain slight home on number 23 on the bench. Oh, you heard it here first.
I think a key to it is going to be, and everyone is talking about him, so we might as well just bring him in this week as well. A genuinely key player in that, just because of it is Pollock, right? Because of the energy, the excitement, and kind of the just insane 100%. Like, I think again, you said this to me at the weekend, Charles. Like, to be that young and to have not even a single shred of, I'm not saying you should have self-doubt, but like to not have a single shred of it, to be absolutely 100% confident in your ability and the ability of the team around you, like, is going to be a huge thing. Like, he's probably going to be playing 8. Not the favoured position. A lot of people seem to think he had a quiet game at the weekend. I was like, you must not have been watching what I did. He was absolutely everywhere. I was like, what are you talking about? He threw himself everywhere and tried everything he could. I do think a key thing that we need to focus on this week, I mean, we got turned over so much in that game. It's something that we seem to just... our ability sometimes to protect the ball is not as strong as it should be. So that's going to be a key focus this week. You need Pollock in there, like trying to get over the ball as much as possible. But we've also just got to protect our own ball. It seems to be a running theme throughout this season that we don't seem to want to compete as often as possible. And I get it. I get that competing can sometimes mean penalties, but not competing more often means a turnover rather than the kind of other way around. So I think we've really got to focus, like you said, it's about retention of the ball, right? So that's got to be a really, really key thing this week. You've got to get extra people in there protecting it, because we got turned over repeatedly. I mean, Saracens have always had a very, very good defensive structure, right? It took us a long time to unlock that over the weekend. Like I said, once their energy kind of dipped and ours went up, we were able to unlock it kind of at the end. But I think turnovers is still a bit of a concern. It'll be an interesting matchup, because I've seen a little bit of Bordeaux as the tournament's gone on, but they still, at least to me, not necessarily to other people, but they're an unknown to me because I just haven't seen them enough.
They've got a big physical French pack with, Adam Coleman, who's an absolute beast, and Johnny Gray, who's a lion, etc. in the second row. They've got phenomenal big man. They've got a prop called Poirot, which is just amazing. But they are big. But they're there to be run. I think they're a side to be run. But I do agree with Sarah in terms of, I did think Pollock had his quieter game, but not for any lack of his playing, right? It's because Saracens were very smart in the way they targeted him, right? They didn't target him like the French teams where they tried to beat him up. They just didn't give him a sniff. They were beating him as a team to the ball competitively. And that will be a phenomenal learning experience for Pollock, right? Because what he kept doing was he was like a ball to a rag, whatever the saying is, right? Because he just kept going for it. He just kept trying to get there, kept going for it. Whereas when you're being targeted, and like George Smith was, I always talk about him, but he was the best because people would target him because he's the best to have ever done that in terms of Jacqueline, right? So so you have to play double bluff with them. I'm going to go in. Oh wait, they beat you. All right, but you're already on to the next one. Because you're not going after that ruck. You're going after the next ruck or 3 rucks down, and because you're reading it, you're playing their chess game before they've even worked out what they're playing, and so that's what he'll learn from that. You can't just keep, because they're on top of you. You can't just keep like a hamster running in a wheel trying to do the same thing. You've got to go, right, ease off, let the game come to me. I'll keep doing what I'm doing and let the game come to me. And he will have learned phenomenally from that. So I did think he had a bit of a quieter game, but not from
but the thing is, I'm just sort of like
impact.
No, that's what I mean. I was like, if that is his quieter game, like I'm happy because I feel like it seems like it feels like the barometers. Yeah, no, definitely wasn't lack of effort. Yeah, it just wasn't. And the thing is that you're going to have players that like they work best against certain styles and other styles of play. I don't want to say struggle because I don't think he struggled, but you don't get the same impact, and that's just an inevitable part of the game, right? He can't play at that level against every single team because every single team is different. I think, like you said, the key thing, like if they've got that big kind of heavy forward pack, is going to be probably quite similar to Cast, right? We just wore them down. They were huge. By 60 minutes, they were done. And we sort of skated. I'm not saying that we're going to skate over the line against Bordeaux. I don't think that for any second because I think they're going to score some points. But I think if that's the game, I think we've got like you said, the fitness levels. I know it sounds ironic because we've just been talking about injuries, but I mean the kind of physical fitness to do 80 minutes. Like we definitely have that ability. And so if that is what it's going to come down to, then I certainly think that'll be a positive. Like you said, keep the ball, keep running, keep that tempo up. I mean, we were quick against. We were quick against Cass. We were quick against Leinster. To be fair, we were quick against Bristol, and just keep that pace up. And you will run big, heavy packs out of the game. Definitely.
You do realise though, you go back to that what you're saying about preempting the game before the game. Like there was loads of people on social media going, "Why are Saints playing their full strength side?" You saw in that first 30, 40, 50 minutes exactly why, because they'd had a week off and they were rusty and so off.
Yeah, they were rusty.
Imagine if they didn't play at all, and then we jump into a final. They are 3 weeks of not playing. Would have been silly. So well done, Mr. Dowson. We know you know exactly what you're doing, and we never doubted you.
Yeah, I always said the risk for me is there's always a risk of injuries, and we know that firsthand now because there's a few that are now knocking about. But I always feel like the risk of going into a final in Europe undercooked is more than the risk of playing your full strength side.
Yeah.
And if it turns out that decision means that certain people can't play and we maybe don't quite have it to get over the line, I still wouldn't say that they should regret that choice, because for the first 40, 50 minutes, it literally was like watching a team blow the cobwebs off, and then finally they were able to kind of
But part of that I think is just it seems to be a conscious thing or a consistent thing with this team, and that's the mental involvement in a game. Sometimes that was a dead rubber. Right, and it took them a sort of bit of a rollicking at half time, and a bit of a Saracens really gave them a kick in to get them fired up to respond. And and sometimes one of maybe the slightly hungrier players coming off the bench had a real impact, right, because they had something really to. And maybe that is a thing, and I don't think that's going to be a factor in the final. Going back to Pollock as well, just quickly, it might have also been that Saracens' attention and energy just to stop Pollock might have done them in the end. They were so focused and putting so much energy in trying to stop him and have an impact on the game that they were completely gone. The last 30 minutes, they were struggling to stay.
It's what happened in the Cass game, that they went about it a bit differently, right? That they targeted him so heavily and he scored 2 tries that you could just see that they were like, they just gave up. I think they just they backfired.
Sarries actually targeted him, but they actually did their work, and they not nullified him totally, but they took some of his game away. Whereas Cass,
but then the problem is that like Saracens obviously forgot that he's basically the living embodiment of the Duracell bunny, and that you are going to have to continue. Like, he isn't going to back off. Like Pollock didn't back off. Like you said, he continued to go at it. And he wasn't getting the impact, but you could almost argue that the impact wasn't tiring them out, right? Like he still had the kind of indirect impact. And the same against Cast. Like with Cast, it wasn't the kind of Duracell bunny effect. It was the fact that they really heavily went at him. It didn't work. In fact, it had the direct opposite impact, and they had nothing left to give after that. It was almost like that was their sole like aim for the game, that as if the idea of like, take this kid out and it's not going to work. I said that's such a risk. And I remember we were talking about it when we said, are Leinster going to target him or not? And I was very steadfast in that they wouldn't do it, because they'd probably seen firsthand what had happened against Cast, and they very much didn't do it. As it turned out, they might as well have tried, because he scored an incredible try and kind of helped us in that game. So maybe they should have tried it, but it just doesn't seem to work. And I would even argue that it didn't really work for Saracens, because like you said, they just tired themselves out, because he has an energy level that just doesn't seem to disappear no matter what you try. And that's also going to be crucial, isn't it? We want to play with pace, we want to play with energy. and you've got a 20-year-old kid who's literally full of it and and is still riding an incredible high. You know, he's been given Bill this week. He's officially on Bill duty. As I imagine, the happiness of getting together with the Lion squad properly again. They're probably all riding that high as well. There's another reason why I think it's interesting as Maro as a captain, isn't it? Because you've then got him as a captain and 4 Saints lads coming in, and he's probably still got bad memories of what happened a couple of days before. But to be fair, I think he's a consummate professional. I still think he's a good choice as captain, irrespective. But yeah, I bet that was it was probably an interesting moment for him when he first saw them. He's probably like, I don't like you guys right now, but
it's none of that at all. What it is, and I say it every time. We won the toss and we played downhill second half. I always say it when we're getting battered. I always say to people around us, "Don't worry, we're playing downhill. We'll
downhill."
And we did. Yes. We did.
Slow. Yeah. I think but I think that our fitness levels are definitely a factor, and especially against the French teams. I think we match up really well against French teams. We've got a brilliant catch defense, so their ability to sort of pull blitz defenses apart by playing jouet sort of goes out the window because you just stay connected and let them play in front of you when you squeeze them forward. So I think defensively we've got the right mindset for the French teams. Physically, I think we're out. I think the ball in play will be a key thing. Territory is massive, but don't let it go out. Make them run back and play on. I think they're the key factors. But anyway, should we get to some predictions?
Yep.
Last week, we all got the right result. Both of you got the right margin.
I can't remember what I said.
You had by 5 points, Saints to win by 5. Jess, you had them to win by 3, so you're both within the 3-part margin. So we won by 4, 28-24.
Okay, yes, all right.
So you both you both got the margin.
But
you got 3 points each because you got the margin win,
right.
But so none of us got a try scorer. So you both drew the week, so no one gets a point for the league. So
poor Tommy Freeman is 100% record in however many games has gone.
Yeah.
He
couldn't score as well.
I said Freeman. I picked Pollock and Mitchell.
Mitch, yeah. So unfortunately, no one got.
And instead, it was Carrick Afar times 2 for. Yeah.
So.
But I'm assuming that they've just the club are just doing what they're doing, and until someone tells them that there's a problem, they're just going to carry on. Like you said, there's no way he's not playing this weekend, and there's no way that people in the know don't know that he's not playing this weekend. So I think they've probably just left it.
It's probably a sensible conversation in the corridors of the RFU, isn't it?
But anyway, I would imagine it's a case of, do we do this now? Because the RFU as well, I don't think they necessarily get it. They aren't going to get anything out of an English champion in terms of anything particular, but it's a good thing to say, isn't it? That you have an English champion in Europe. They're going to want us to field the best side we can, and so they're probably just we could say something to them about it. But
he played 80 as well. That's the thing.
Maybe
he's
not.
A machine. He played 80 minutes. He's a machine.
Yeah, he's crazy.
You don't. I don't want to say this, but really, really touch wood, right? You never feel any worry about contact with Tommy because he's so physically fit and he hits everything so aggressive that you just always feel he's going to come off on the right side of things.
And you know what? I'm not saying the other boys aren't, but he's literally the nicest lad as well. Not saying the other boys weren't, but they were probably absolutely knackered. Excuse me if that's class as swearing, but they went out. Whereas Tommy stayed out and he signed every autograph, had every picture. He then went to the media to have his media work done. Came back and then he did more. He went up to Radio Northampton and did more. He was literally signing all the time. Whereas others just went, guys, I need to go. He stayed and did it all. He's just the nicest all round. Just a top bloke.
They are top blokes, aren't they? But yeah, he's definitely one of them. But so right, predictions for the final. So do you want to go first?
Oh.
Okay, I'm allowed to go first. That's the first time ever. I'm going. I reckon it'll just be a try difference. I think so. I'm going to go 24-22 to Saints, and Freeman to score the try. Charles is like, you git.
He's got to get back on. He's got to get back on the horse, man. He's slacking.
He'll
he didn't score last week.
He'll score the winning try.
Right, go on, Jess.
I do think it will be in the 20s. I do think there'll be some. I think there'll be some lovely tries from both sides. I think
The
that's going to
roof's
be.
closed as well. Don't forget.
I think there's going to be some really nice rugby played. Or at least I hope so. Oh God, what if it ends up being like the previous final was like 9-8 or something?
If we win, I don't care. It could be
Oh no,
3-0.
yeah, right.
I
Don't care less. I couldn't care less.
Greatest spectacle on earth if we win.
I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go for the same scoreline as the Sarries game. I'm gonna go 28-24. We're the home side apparently, so I'm allowed to say 28 first. Yeah, 28-24. Try scorer.
Yeah, we'll be seeded. We're the highest seeds because we beat Leinster.
Yeah, we get to go in the home dressing. Wow. I'm gonna go Kemeny. I'm going to assume he's going to continue. I'm going to assume he's going to continue the trajectory of just playing incredibly, and you know what? Why not? He loves a ball kick through from anywhere. Does he really? He might score it on the wing. He might score it in the centre.
What's going on with the loving? Like, at the start of the season, he was like my favourite player. Now all three of us.
But to be fair, I think he came in and he was, he's quite good. Then he probably did have a lull, and I think he came off the back of a Super Rugby season, didn't he? Yeah, so they've probably given him the right amount of rest and what have you, and got him to peak at the right time because like just said, this last month he's been sensational. Not just doing what he does good, which is he's a world-class line-out operator and he carries really well in the wide channels, etc. But around the park, he's been a dog. He's been phenomenal.
I think we also seem to forget as well that like these players that are coming from overseas, particularly someone like you have to acclimatize. Like that does actually take a while. Like I mean, we had Scott Young on the podcast, didn't he? And he was like he hated that first winter. It was like horrendous for him, having to kind of get through that because they're not used to it. And I should imagine that's the same for all of the guys that have come over from there, right? Having to acclimatize to different playing schedules, different weather, different all kinds of stuff. Like I don't blame him that it took a little bit of time, to kind of acclimatize into that setup. But 100%. I've seen some of his highlights and I was like, he'll be class. But I do think it's kind of telling that he's been playing a lot better when the weather's been nicer and probably more what he's used to.
Charles, what do you reckon?
I reckon it's going to be a bit of a thriller. I mean, I think two phenomenal attacking sides. Yeah. I'm going to go 32-30, and I'm going to go for Mitch to get the winner again. I think he's a man built for the finals, isn't he? So that's what I'm going to go with.
Don't worry about the rain because the roof's closed, isn't it?
Don't worry about the rain. It's going to be, and that's exactly what I think. A lot of people were complaining about it for a while, right? Because I was like, why have they made that decision so early? But when you think about the two teams that are in that final, you absolutely want dry conditions to be able to see them at their best. It's supposed to be warm, but it's supposed to be warm.
It's going to be hot in there, though. It's so hot in there with that roof shut.
Oh yeah, I've literally not been there since 2011.
I mean, that's great. It's hot. It's hot. Let's wear them down, nice and get them sweating. Yeah, get them running.
I think we want that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's push them physically. But anyway, we better round up because I mean, there's just been so much to talk about this because what an exciting week to be a Northampton Saints fan. That trip down to Cardiff, it's going to be great. I just can't wait. But let's hope we get 15 players fit. But anyway, thanks for listening.
23.
We need 23 really.
Let's take our boots. We'll take our boots, Charles. Yeah, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I reckon I could do a roll at 15. Anyway, you wouldn't have to worry about it coming out of the dark sky, would you? Just from the roof. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening. It's been good fun. But I've been Charles, Jess has been Jess, Simon's been Simon. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.